You know, don't worry about that. You got little ones now.
Yeah,
That's
no,
always a good
we're
excuse.
pretty-
Always. Oh, I used to always say that.
Yeah. It's not too bad.
That's good, though. It'll be at your house. That's good.
Yeah, it's easier for my mother.
Oh, that's true, too. That's true.
Good evening. Welcome everyone to the planning board meeting, 11/20/2024.
I think that might still be last week.
No, could be.
Yeah, you're not wearing a black and white shirt.
Same shirt.
Might be.
No, it isn't.
That's the planning board shirt.
All right. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the planning board meeting,
Use this
November
all.
20th, 2024. Charlene, can you call the roll, please?
Richard Anthony,
Here.
Karen Robinson,
Here.
Lori Millette,
Here.
Kim Moore,
Here.
Tom Alberti,
Here.
Dan Kane,
Here.
Nolan Pelletier,
Here.
Bill Coy.
Here.
First order of business, if you had an opportunity, we have a couple sets of minutes to review, one from November 6th, and then also late arrival for the planning, the Economic Development Master Plan Subcommittee. So if anyone has any changes, let's hear it. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from November 6, 2024.
Second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Again, opposed,
I'll abstain.
and one abstention.
Yeah, no,
No, I'm abstained, too.
three.
Three
Yep, three.
abstentions, okay. I'll let it work.
Does the motion pass with a two,
How do we
two
do
oh
that
three?
one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 203.
Or do you appoint Tom and I just to
Yeah.
hear
We
the
we need
minutes?
one of them to,
That's what to do, have,
Yeah.
Tom, I will appoint you as a voting member for purposes of the minutes. Can you?
I
can you
vote in favor of accepting the minutes.
Okay,
My favorite part is that it suggests Karen Robinson do the minutes when Charlene is not present. That's my favorite part, but I do.
all right, so all in favor for November 6th minutes? Aye.
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 Oppose, abstain?
Abstain.
One,
302.
303.
Tim. Yeah,
All right,
And now I'm unappointed.
okay.
Yeah.
So back to September 17th, Economic Development Subcommittee minutes.
Thank God
Well, the
you
only ones
came
who can
tonight.
accept those would be the subcommittee, right? Because the rest of us weren't there.
They're presenting them as the
Yeah,
the
there
minutes.
was no one there.
So
Tim,
you could have stepped-
I could have.
they still
I
want to
think,
accept
so. I
them?
mean,
You don't have-
subcommittee minutes,
Yeah, you don't have to be accepted, right?
No.
well, they get approved by the subcommittee.
The subcommittee, because the rest of us weren't there, so how can you approve
Yeah.
minutes if you weren't
It's
there?
just submitted for our
For
information.
us to see.
That's what I was doing. I was submitting it.
Okay,
we don't have-
so
But,
These will-
I mean, if you see something in there that's,
Yeah.
looks
but they're going to be uploaded to the page.
funny,
It
then
looked shady,
So.
funky.
All right, so
Yeah, we know you'd be doing something shady.
first order of business, I think we said, reiterated, but it's on the agenda. We'll say it out again. So PB 2409 continued from August 21st, September 18th, and October 16th. The completeness of an application from Strategic Real Estate Management LLC for a site plan. The site plan proposes a park and ride for tractor trailers with drainage, landscaping, and lighting at 45 Westville Road, tax map 26, lot 36 in the C1 zoning district. The property owner of record is 45 Westville Road Realty LLC. The applicant has voluntarily withdrawn this application without prejudice. All right, just reading that into the record.
Yep.
Okay, next on the agenda, PB 2415, the completeness of an application from Hilbert's Plantation LLC for a special event permit to allow Christmas tree sales at 31 Garden Road, tax map 26, lot 49 in the C1 zoning district. Property of owner of record is RIGZ Enterprises LLC. The application is found to be complete. The planning board may immediately conduct a public hearing.
Is that Rite Aid?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is,
Make a motion to accept the application, I'll make a motion to accept the application for a special event permit for Hibbert's Plantation to hold Christmas tree sales at 31 Garden Road, tax map 26, lot 49 in the C1 zoning district as complete.
it was easy for you to say.
Second it?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
I'm sorry, but who was the second on that? Thank you, Karen. Missed that.
That's okay.
All right. Well, you just want to kind of give an overview
Welcome.
for any of the viewing public.
My name's Charles Hibbard. I'm from Franklin, New Hampshire. I'm requesting a special events permit to sell Christmas trees at 31 Gardner Road. I've been doing business in Plastow for over 30 years in multiple locations. Don't know of any complaints. And we're requesting to do the same because we've had to change locations once again.
Where was the location that you were doing it?
The new one?
No, the old one.
The old one, the last one we were at was the old Dano's vacant lot.
Okay.
We've been there for 4 years, but you don't know, a real estate agent is in charge of it now. And the landlord, all he will give me is he's been advised not to rent again after 4 years, but he won't give me a reason why. I don't know if he's got somebody on the line to buy the place or lease the place or.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Any questions from the board? Anyone?
No. Isn't this
think
where
it's
the
pretty-
old flower shop was? And they sold trees even then, way back then. Remember?
Yeah, we were at Tractor
Woodland
Supply,
Garden?
we were at Ethan Allen's, we were in front of Bradley's, we've been everywhere up and down. 25. Like I said, it's been 30 years, 3
You're known.
generations.
A known quantity then.
No, welcome.
Thank you.
So it's more or less, you've been doing business, you just have to move to a different site.
Yeah, I just have to keep moving around because your town is so busy. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was at where the hydraulic place is. I was there for 2 years,
Yeah.
Northern Hydraulic. So, and we hope to be here many more years, wherever we might land on 125.
Right. It'll always be there.
All right. I don't see anyone from the public for comment. If no one else has any comments or need any clarification, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yep. Merry Christmas.
All right, so I move to approve the application for a special event permit for Hilbert's Plantation to hold Christmas tree sales at 31 Garden Road, tax map 26, lot 49 in the C1 zoning district with the following condition. Any continuation beyond the 2024 year will require planning board review and approval of an amendment for the site plan. Or the second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Excellent. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas to you also.
All right. All right. Next on the agenda, zoning amendments. He graciously printed out, there should be a series of amendments that we received, plus one that she introduced that we can review. I think what we're looking to do tonight is, these have been reviewed by council. There was some feedback that was given. So I think we're in a position where, we can review these, talk about them, and then I'd like to either have a vote up or down, whether or not they'll appear as a warrant, so that Dee can properly notice them, and schedule a public hearing. Because the calendar's starting to get a little complicated. There are a number of amendments, I think, that I included, at least the correspondence of it going to Attorney Cleary. And those, presumably when they come back, we'll review them. And if I think we'll have time to either vote on them or not, maybe carry them over to next year, but whatever. And, schedule the public hearing if we want to do that. So with that said, Dan, if you want to just walk us through what we have here, and does the board have a preference how they want to deal with it? Like we go through review one, vote on it, or do you want to review all of them and then go through and vote on them?
I would say vote on them as you go through them because it's fresh in your mind. That's just my opinion.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, we'll get,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right.
And Lori, you were, if you want to chime in, provide context and things like that, you're welcome.
So first one was Article 1, Z25-1. Attorney Cleary had given us some comments. Anything you see highlighted in yellow is what I struck out, which he gave us the concept legal argument, in which I struck out anything in the authorization. It basically allows us to do some housekeeping, and if there's a misstatement of a statutory citation and the renumbering of sections of the ordinance. I struck out any language that seemed to deviate from that. So Article 1 is pretty much as is, as reviewed by council.
All right, and just to, again, for context, what is the problem that we're trying to solve?
Well, the ordinance itself is starting to become a little bit unwieldy in the numbering, as you go through, 3-4 digit, decimal places. So the idea was to give us some more latitude so that we can expand the numbering and not have to, keep putting things into, like Article 5, for example, is a good example.
Is it Z25.5 that you're talking about?
No,
Okay.
this is Z25-1, but Article 5 of the zoning ordinance itself
Okay.
is, we tie everything into the town of Plastow code sections, which is code section 220. And then, your 220, 32.1, 0.6, So the idea was to give us at least the opportunity, there's no mandate here, but the opportunity to fix this without having to run a whole series of amendments through the local legislative body to do it. That's all Article 1 essentially gives us. And it moved, there was a whole article on severability and a whole article on the effective dates. I just moved those out of those separate articles that were in the back end of the ordinance into Article 1. So we deal with all the housekeeping right up front.
Yep.
Yeah, and the big thing really is just to renumber the ordinance. It doesn't give us authorization to change the intent
No.
or anything like that.
No. And even I started to play around with the voter's guide, just a couple of sentences, and I say at the last, it's not authorized the planning board to change the intent of the ordinance or anything.
It's a big thing for everyone just
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah. This is pure housekeeping,
No, this is exactly. So otherwise, if without this, if we had to do some sort of, Scribner error or something like, we would have to propose it as a warrant article, correct?
Correct.
no, I think we always had the ability to renumber and correct typos without having to go to town meeting. That you have to be careful about renumbering because a lot of the variances are based on the zoning, number. So not that you can't do it, but I don't, I'm sure there's no variances on any of these. So I think this is,
Well, and this was just part of that training I took with best practices, and I had a conversation
yeah,
with them about this and what,
Is this New Hampshire Municipal Association?
this was the BEA.
All right.
And their view was this is a good practice to have. It's a good thing to have in the zoning ordinance. And their view was also that without getting the authority from the local legislative body, we shouldn't be really touching the zoning ordinance.
I think what Tim said was the only thing I brought up as a concern was that anything written, decisions, applications, prior, whatever, to any changes would reference the old number. Would that cause any unforeseen issues looking ahead, right? References to a zoning, or anything that was numbered one way is now a different number. So I don't know. That's why it's good to have Tim's insight on that.
Isn't the legal standard on that, Tim, is your variance is granted based on the zoning ordinance in effect at the time this variance was granted?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you just have to be cognizant that you need to make that distinction, that the variance was based on section 1.2 in the 2019 version of the ordinance, or,
So what does that look like? Do people have to go back and edit the variance language if you're engaged in like some sort of wholesale editing session, or?
No, it just needs to be on file with the planning board administrator that
Falls under.
ordinance was based on the prior edition, prior numbering of it's just a housekeeping issue. It's not.
All right, so.
So I don't see anything wrong with this one. Article 1 change.
Any other questions, concerns? All right. Let's see, how do we want to phrase this? Move to accept,
Article
I'll
1.
make a motion to post Article 1 for the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Right.
Well, I shouldn't say Article 1, Z25-1. That's what we, posting the amendment.
seconded by Karen?
25-1. Okay, that's what you have to do.
Seconded by Karen?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right. So what's the next one, Dan?
Z
25-3.
Okay.
B25-2 has been sent back to council,
Okay.
okay? Because Attorney Cleary had said there were some definitions that he was confused about, so just made the changes that he had suggested to the definition, and then just asked for him to just clarify the confusion, because if there's things we need to change, we can change them. And right now, I'm ordinance blind. I've looked at this stuff so much, I can't. If there was a cuss word in there, I couldn't even pick it out. So.
Where is number
Number
3?
3. says
It
right.
says 1 at the top. I just have to
Okay.
fix that. I did fix that on my copy, but
All right, so that shouldn't be
Yeah.
Z25-3. All right, so what are we looking at here?
these are just kind of standard provisions I've seen in other general provisions throughout other ordinances. Are they nice to have? Do they clarify? Yes. Are they essential? I would say no. But they certainly would be nice. The real issue here is the last one highlighted in yellow, which gives the planning board authority to require when, in our opinion, either the nature or scope of a proposed application for subdivision and or site plan warrant, that an applicant participate in a preliminary conceptual consultation
Right.
or design review as such terms are defined in the subdivision and site plan review regulations. When the committee was discussing this, the thought, and I think some current things were fresh in minds, one of them was fresh in my mind, was that I thought, that 65-day clock runs pretty quick. And a complex plan, you think we don't give ourselves time to evaluate it? I don't think it's necessarily as fair to the applicant, and that's what we're trying to do.
I like that second part right there. I mean, I think if that option, it is available to us, but I think that if it's, we're talking about it, it's in our consciousness, then something that is, might have questions surrounding it as such, then, why wouldn't that be a tool in our arsenal?
Right.
To have somebody come in conceptually, talk about something, get feedback. We did have a lot of success. We did have a lot of success with, I think, having someone come in and talk conceptually with us, where they kind of saw where we were coming from and, took into account our feedback. And, whereas, as opposed to somebody that, was just sort of encountering this board for the first time. Those are my thoughts on the subject.
No, I mean, I think we've had good luck with both conceptual plans and design reviews.
Yep.
I don't think we should ever force the applicant to do that. Strongly recommend for all kinds of reasons, but I don't think it's right to say you have to come in with a conceptual plan, or you have to come in for a design review.
Would it bog us down as well within that? Because some don't, frankly, need it. The more complex ones, and to Tim's point, the town administration has been really good about suggesting that they do that, and for the complex ones. I just would hate to think that everyone that comes in, that's like, you're wasting your time, you're
I
wasting
don't
our
think
time.
it's, I don't think it's,
It's not saying we have to. It's saying it's
Because when it-
authorized.
We have the authority.
Authorized. We have the authority to require.
And
When in their opinion.
When in our opinion,
Right.
yeah.
I think that's the wording that you have to look at.
so I mean, we're not doing anything in essence, to your point, that we're not
No.
requiring it to happen, but it's sort of reiterating something
Well,
that.
Well,
we
we could,
can,
no, we could require it. Yeah,
That's what
this
that's what it's
language-
saying.
Yeah, this language says we could require it.
Planning board is authorized to require, when in their opinion, blah, blah, blah.
And how do we
I
do
don't
that?
think we should ever require an applicant to do one thing or another. Strongly recommend that they do it, point out the advantages to them and to us, quite frankly, to do those. But
Well, it
I
says when
don't,
in their opinion.
I don't think we can
too.
require
their
them to.
opinion.
Or I would not be in favor of.
Right, because that's what's being asked, that we could, do we want to be able to compel somebody that, I think you should come in for a.
when do we get-
When do you require it though? Because we would have to have notice of an application coming.
Right, that's what I was just gonna go, because if you have to give your opinion, that means we've already had the paperwork that they're probably coming in front of us.
Then what does the process look like? I mean, at what point does the board require it or not require it? I guess, from a process perspective, where would that happen? Where would that happen?
The only place you could is when an application was filed.
Right, which is that,
No.
right, that's the time to say, look, I think before you file this completely, go before the planning board.
So I think
It's basically when it hits the office.
I mean, the first time we see an application, they're in here for us to review to see if it's complete. So if it's complete, then we vote, yes, it's complete. That starts the 65-day clock. Now, after we accept it as complete, we could, I suppose, recommend that we not open the, well, I don't know.
Yeah, I think
It
that
doesn't-
gets very gray, you know, and murky,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I just think the preliminary is more of an open discussion.
Well, it is, but the point is, we don't see the application until it's here for us to take some action. So it's, by the time we see it, it's too late to say, oh, we want to look at this tonight, please come back for conceptual review.
Yeah, because normally, let's just pick, any of the projects where we have had a preliminary review. Typically, it gets put on the agenda and it's not an application at that point. It's just a preliminary discussion. So obviously, Town Admin has suggested it. The applicant is good with it, knowing that it's going to help them, and us comes in, does it, right? But we don't have an actual application to work with yet. It's just in the pre-application process that gets suggested.
Well,
Yeah.
you'd have to play with the rules of procedure, the only way to, in the application itself.
Right.
I mean, to effectuate something like this, you would have to.
It would almost like there'd have to be some sort of intervening process
And
on the intake.
Yeah, and I'm probably using it's probably not the rules of procedure, but it's the subdivision or site plan review regulations would have to have a piece in there that would require some elements of what a requirement would look like. My issue
So
on
could we
this one,
authorize the chair to take a look at it when the application comes in?
I don't think so. That's pretty slow.
no, you gotta be, it's gotta be a full board issue. The issue to me is the clock.
Right, the 65 day.
Is the current process broken?
I mean, obviously it gets brought up, right? Because how many times we've had it happen where somebody comes in ahead of time
Right.
because they're told you should come before the board before you start the application process. So we know that the process is kind of working because we do have, a few have come before us.
I don't know, it's not broken. It's, in some sense, I mean, I personally would like to see,
Definitely.
I mean, it's,
Yeah.
it's about giving the applicant, being fair to the applicant, making the process, potentially
Proposed
successful.
application.
And, in where we've done it, it has been, I think, successful for everyone. So, I mean, I don't know if this is, I don't know how this would be implemented.
Well, that's the problem. I mean,
Yeah.
this is only one piece. We're talking about zoning ordinances. How to implement it requires more lifting.
Would it be wrong to put recommended instead of
It,
authorized?
we can recommend without, I don't think
That's not
I don't think we need the authority to recommend. I don't think we need to amend the zoning ordinance to give us the authority to recommend.
Yeah, that's true.
Would it
This
be-
is giving us power,
Right. Right.
Would you put wording in there to basically stop the clock or say something until we, the following meeting or like that? Or is that a
These
legal
are all
binding thing
governed.
once they apply, there's no way to override
Once the
that?
clock ticks, it's ticking.
Yeah, so
But-
basically, once that applicant comes in and we accept it as complete,
As
then
complete.
then the clock
But-
starts.
If this was done prior to
Right.
accepting it as complete, then could you shift that over? Or even if it's, I don't know the legality of it. If it comes before you and technically it's complete, but you might see issues where, okay, we want to conceptually talk about this before we put it in to save you issues down the road, moving that clock over before, I don't know if you
Yeah.
technically legally have to say it's complete if everything is put in front of you and it's
But-
complete.
You can't,
Tim, we can't open up a hearing and talk to anybody unless we accept it as complete, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's a conceptual design review.
Yeah, right.
Right, that would be the difference.
But we have measures to extend clocks. I mean,
Yeah.
65 days doesn't prohibit it from going beyond it. You
Well,
just,
only if the applicant,
Yeah, the applicant has to grant.
the applicant
applicant
has
has
to
to-
grant
Yeah.
us the permission.
Right.
yeah.
But I mean, they're, obviously they can do whatever they choose, but, I mean, typically, if we, at a point in reviewing the application where we need more than 65 days, if the applicant doesn't request it, then
We can
we don't
deny
have
it without
information to
prejudice.
approve it, so we deny it. So, I mean, it's to their,
It is.
it's to their benefit to,
I don't,
request and.
I don't see the downside from denying something without prejudice. You're just saying that, we can't resolve this in 65 days. You can refile it. But I mean, what's the downside to, like the 65-day clock runs out and there are issues all over the place and it's just,
Well, I mean, it depends on what the issues are,
This
right?
gives us
I mean,
power.
I mean, if it's DOT stuff, if it's something from the state, we can conditionally
yeah,
approve that.
I mean, more often than not, we do a conditional approval based on getting the required state permits, right? I mean, that's pretty common.
I think we
But-
kind of have to do that anyways, too, don't we?
I mean, it depends
Yeah, 'cause
on,
those things don't-
if we're waiting for an alteration of terrain permit,
Whenever that comes.
yeah, but, I mean, if the state is making changes to that can affect the whole site plan. So, that's probably one where, we would not, not just make that a condition of approval. But, I mean, again, you got to look case by case.
Right, they're all different.
But I don't see any way, and I don't think we should, require conceptual or design reviews. But even if we chose to do that, I don't know where, as Bill stated a few minutes ago, the first time we see an application, the first thing we have to do is accept it as complete or not. And if it's complete, if all the, all the checklist stuff is there, then once we do that, it starts the 65-day clock. So there's no way to say, oh yeah, we accepted it's complete, but oops, we'd like you to come back for design review.
Yeah, that's not the intent here. The
I
intent
know.
is to deal
but
with this.
I'm just saying, I don't see how we can legally implement this, I guess.
It'd have to be in the application. That's the only place where it could be, right?
Could you add a spot in the application that says, conceptual design, yes or no, they make a choice? I don't know if you can. I know Dee does a pretty good job,
We always
mentioning.
have the trouble because, and it's come up quite a few times, when somebody wants it complete, but it seems like that's automatic. Yep, complete, and we start the clock.
Well,
But what if we don't want to?
the statutes, give us some leeway in it, but not a lot of leeway.
No.
Is if we've presented the applicant with an application and they've completed the application, that's essentially going to be.
And that's really what it is, right?
Yeah.
Have you completed all the steps and put everything in?
Yeah.
Yes.
How
Yes,
do
it's
we
complete.
accept
Now
it?
we open up.
It's
the
not
hearing.
about what's in the application and what they're trying to do. It's about the application process itself.
Right, have they filed everything that they needed to file?
On the application, though, there is, just for speaking about completeness. And speaking about completeness, there is a disclaimer. It says that, the review that's been done doesn't
Just so the process
doesn't
doesn't begin.
release us from doing our own review
Yeah,
of
it
completeness.
Right.
So,
And in writing.
Karen, I guess-
Doesn't matter what
Side
the-
conversation.
Sorry.
I'm just saying that, this board, when something is presented to us for completeness, there is reliance upon staff review, there is reliance on a checklist, but it doesn't release the board from conducting its own review of completeness.
No, but Well,
I mean, there's a disclaimer right on it saying that, that everything that came before this doesn't, the board still has to do its own review.
what about, what, rather than spending, hours on this one, what if we tried to do something on the application which put strongly recommends, or we play around with that, and rely on the administrative process to suggest, not require, but suggest conceptual and preliminary review. We work that into maybe some language on the application that doesn't use the word require.
Yeah.
Would that work?
Probably, but, I mean, that's,
At the end of the day, it's still up to the applicant.
No, I know. Well, that's why I'm trying to work to get something
Get it
that
in
gives
the
us a
applicant.
little bit of,
So at least they've had to acknowledge whether that was offered to them or not, I
Yeah.
guess, is what you're saying.
oh yeah, and just
Exactly.
is to
So don't require.
suggest that they might be the
Yes.
beneficiary of that.
Make it an application question,
Yeah.
because then it becomes part of the completeness, right? That they've checked the box on yes or no.
Yeah, and
I would almost be deferential to that. I mean, it's not statutory. It's no required language, but you're making somebody aware of
Aware of it.
in a more explicit way that there are options other than coming in for a
And
position.
we're
like an
looking
option
at
thing that could
the
be done?
site plan and subdivision
like that
regulations
be done?
now, right?
It could be worded as, in certain situations, a conceptual review is highly recommended to, blah, blah, blah. These are the benefits to the applicant and the planning board.
you like to take advantage of.
Yes,
Yeah,
And if the
Yeah,
applicant
that's
wants to
good.
do a full-blown.
it is
site plan,
highly
so be
recommended
it.
for.
Take advantage of.
It might save them money.
Right, exactly.
Well, it should save you time, right? I mean, because a
Time,
lot of
definitely.
times in the conceptual, we knock off a lot of things.
Right.
yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
conceptual plans don't require a butter notification, so, that saves you a chunk of money there.
Yep.
But design reviews do require.
Right.
A butter notification, so it's, I don't know that you save,
Well, you save time.
well,
Right, on the back
So
and
do we
forth.
want
well,
to,
yeah, on the
Word
back
it.
end, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
we
So
want to
it's almost
strike,
like a rule of procedure vote versus a warrant article vote, I think. And then we could work to sort of solidify the language into our rules of procedure that the application include a yes or no designation on the offer of a conceptual review with some language about why it can be beneficial to the applicant. And
Yeah, it's more administrative than anything.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
just vote on a recommendation that the application include language that a conceptual review or design review may be beneficial. Have
That gives them.
you discussed with the applicant whether they would like a conceptual review or whatever, and then the applicant would have to respond yes or no. And maybe just a, one sheet handout that you could give them.
You know what?
What conceptual review is and what a design.
Yeah, and that way we know every applicant they've seen it.
Yeah.
And they've had that chance.
Right.
So what does something like that look like? It's not going to be on this.
it's not here, so you strike the language,
Good.
and then we'll just work on,
right.
whether it's the rules of procedures of the subdivision or the site plan, wherever we think it's most appropriate.
Probably
Figure
the
out.
rules of
Voters will
procedure
think it's-
with the application.
Yeah, it will.
Well, usually the application though is, all that requirements are sitting in the site plan and subdivision regulations, aren't they, Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where all that stuff is.
So it didn't require a warrant article.
No,
No.
No, you're not up to the warrant article.
No, just make a recommendation that we
Right.
add a checkbox to the application.
I think we're gonna have to have a public hearing anyways on those, right? On the subdivision and site plan
We
regulations.
could include it in
You
that
have to
if you
hear it on
wanted.
that.
Yeah.
You could Include it
Yeah.
in that one.
Yeah, we could include it there because it does list items in the checklist.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
that's,
So we strike that.
that's one less.
Yeah, so
Well,
that's
not
good.
there's
Well-
still the amendment, but it's
Yeah.
just, these are simple housekeeping things,
Yeah.
but
Right.
No, and I think, I think I like
I get the point.
I like the soft power approach as opposed to,
yeah.
something that's administratively heavy. You've apprised somebody of their options and,
Put a little honey on it.
yeah, and then they can choose.
All right, so I'll make a motion to post zoning amendment Z25-3 to the, for public hearing with the amendment that we would not include 22017.12.
Second it. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? All right.
So Z25-4 went to council. I reflected his comments, which basically are highlighted in yellow. His main concern, so I struck on that second page all of that other stuff. And this was in our meeting we discussed last time. Council's concerns was on temporary structures and uses that, construction projects obviously gone, can extend. So construction projects, as the temporary use in construction projects can last up until the building inspector decides he doesn't want them to last anymore.
All right, so that's like, that's the part where you're talking about like not incidental to construction projects. Yeah. Whereas, if there was a construction
Temporary structure.
command vehicle or something, or that could persist until site is complete.
Yeah, and again, the building inspector, according to the town's policies on temporary structures, he's in charge of that, And there was a reference to the
International.
IBC or IRC. I struck that and just said it's the town's building permitting policies and procedures. Everything else is struck, and then
Okay, the
I didn't,
last page.
I separated this as I discussed last time from Article 5, because that ties more with Article 6. So these are amendments to the Article 5 tables, if you will. And in the definitions, we define a child daycare agency and we define an adult daycare program of services. Because it was pointed out last time that daycare facilities may refer to both. So we separated out what they were.
Adult daycare programs might have been in the news, not necessarily in Plastow. Is this, how's that addressed or not addressed?
Do we address diapers in there?
Atkinson.
There we are.
Adult diapers?
Yeah.
Well, the state has a fairly broad definition of this, and that's all we do is, when this goes back into the definitions, it really refers back to the RSA. And the signs piece was just right out duplicative of what's already in Article 9, so suggested striking.
Attorney Cleary suggested you strike it?
No,
these
it was
things-
already,
Okay.
Already there.
it was already there. Whatever change he asked me to make, I made.
Okay. I'm just curious, where you see capitalizations of like districts and things like that, was that previously not, was that,
No, that was not, they're defined terms, but they're not capitalized.
okay.
I told you, I went through, I don't know if the rest of the board has it, but when I went through Article 3 and just, looked at all the terms that are defined and then not used as defined terms in the article, or terms that are intentionally supposed to be defined but are not, that's indicative of, some of the housekeeping that has to go on.
All right.
And we'll see what Attorney Cleary comes back. I created a paragraph in Article 2 to see if we could clean it up without having to do a massive red line of the ordinance. So we'll see if he comes back and
All right, fair enough.
says that's okay.
Any questions from the board?
I guess just one, we're going to allow agriculture in Village Center, which I don't have any problem with that, but should probably expand that to the ICR.
It's already in the ICR.
It's already in
Yeah.
ICR.
What it was, when I looked at all of the districts, the Village Center, which is primarily residential, didn't have agriculture as a permitted use. And it has, one of the larger farms sitting right in the middle of it. So
Right.
that's the reason it was in every other one but this one.
Yeah, that's because we cut and paste C2, and changed the,
No, I
yeah,
figured out.
yeah, good catch.
All right. Entertain a motion to,
Z25-4?
yep, on Z25.
Is there, just on the, you probably answered this 25 times already, but the daycare, child daycare particularly, did we, so it's already a permitted use, just sort of changing the title from child daycare agency and then adding adult daycare?
Yeah, because it said daycare facilities, but daycare facilities wasn't defined anywhere in the ordinance.
Yeah,
So before you went, Tim, when we were talking, you had suggested that it was supposed to mean child daycare and adult daycare.
yeah,
So we just separate.
yeah, that's fine. I'm just, there must be state RSAs governing child daycare?
So in the definitions, it just refers to the RSA definition.
Oh, okay,
Yep. Same thing with adult
Good.
daycare. I used the same term and then I referred to the RSA.
okay, yeah, that's good.
Oh, I made the motion, so.
Doggy daycare.
All right, so what are we looking at here? Make a motion, proposed planning zoning amendment, Z25-4. What do we want to say after that?
For a public hearing?
For public hearing? Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right. Next up.
Z25-7?
If I can suggest, let's do 27 right at the end of this group. It's just it's the more complicated of the ones. We can knock off the next three pretty quick.
Okay.
7 is put to the back.
Yeah.
7, put to the side.
We'll go to 8. This is the prime wetlands. And this is right off of Tim's suggested amendment language.
Yeah, and I think, need to add limited use buffer, colon 50 feet.
Okay.
What, the public hearing's on the 4th, is that right?
Yeah, December 4th, for the,
Should we hold off on voting until after the public hearing?
Well, is it already been posted? I mean, we've been
It's already,
been noticed and everything.
isn't it?
Noticed,
Yeah.
right.
So
The
then
letters have been
then
sent.
we vote after.
That's what I'm saying, after that way that we hear of.
Yeah, there might be some.
we posted the legal notice to hold the prime wetlands public hearing.
Okay.
As far as I know, we haven't posted any legal notice to hold zoning changes. So, I mean, obviously the two, in this case, the two are related, but we still, at some point, need to set a date for zoning changes,
Okay.
issue the public.
So we have to do this then, is what you're saying?
So, I'm sorry?
What,
He's saying not to do it, right?
no, I don't.
Well, if we want to have a hearing on the 18th of December, public hearing on zoning, then
Yeah.
the notice has to go out no later than the 6th.
There's
We
no
have a
reason,
hearing on the 4th.
what I'm thinking is, after the public hearing on this, we can vote. Which would be the 4th.
All right, so you're saying have the public hearing and then.
And then we vote.
Vote on this. I mean, it
But this
sounds,
is, we're not voting for recommendation, we're only voting to put it to public hearing right now. So we're
Yeah.
not giving a recommendation yet.
Right.
All right, I got you.
So just.
I was thinking,
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Public hearing.
all right.
And there's already language in our zoning about how many feet, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah, this
already-
is just adjusting
This
that
is
table.
already, this is
That's
already something that's in
I
there.
got you, just,
Yep.
all right, glad you straightened me out.
No problem.
It's all
You'll miss me when I'm gone.
What, how come this isn't in with the prime wetlands discussion?
It is. This is the result of changing the table, which is what's going to be the prime.
The table is already in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So my,
Limited but use buffer is.
yeah, we need to add limited use buffer.
And what is that, 50 feet?
It's 50 feet.
All right.
Limited buffer.
It's called limited use
Limited
buffer.
Limited use buffer.
Okay.
Sorry about that, but
No, I'll make that change.
the 50 feet corresponded to the regular wetland as opposed to a prime wetland. But the current zoning has a higher number for the limited use buffer, so.
The voter's guide language says no change in limited use buffer. So do we need to change that too?
Yes.
Limited use buffer. Okay.
See, no change.
Limited use is defined, right?
Yeah,
Yes. It's in the-
That's fine. I just assumed that we had it defined someplace as we refer to it.
You don't know what page that is, Dan?
I know, what the heck?
Come on, get with it.
Tim does, probably.
Tim does on this one. I've stayed out of the wetlands.
Laurie's coming in hard tonight.
it's Article 4,
Literally
Section
and figuratively,
220-18,
stay out of the wetlands.
I think.
18.3.
All right, so there's no language being added to the voter guide information? We're just saying that there's no change to the limited use buffer?
No, we would change that.
You have to
I
change limited
Listen, this
use
is just
buffer.
copied as is, so
Okay.
we'll make that change.
50 feet.
And so I'll make a motion to post C-25-8 for a public hearing as amended.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Z25-9.
So this was, since this is,
Enforcement.
well, and the Board of Selectmen are in charge of the enforcement, so we sent this, I had sent this to Bill for them to.
Yeah, we'll do it at our next meeting on the
Okay.
1st.
All right, so we can do it next time then.
So we won't vote.
Did I send this to you in Word, Bill? Do you recall?
I don't remember. I think you may have, I forget.
I can resend, I'll resend it in Word just in case.
Okay,
Is
perfect.
that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when is that, December 6th, you said?
First.
First? Cheers. I'm listening.
See?
I might have sent it as a PDF.
Yeah, we only had one meeting since then, and right leading up to that, I was out of town that whole week. I'll get it on for the 1st.
All right, so we're not taking any action? You know,
No,
until-
let them-
all right,
no, they-
Okay, so that's
Yep,
fine.
they are, so.
Does that mean that because this still needs to go in front of the Board of Selectmen, that it won't necessarily be included in our public hearing? Because we haven't voted to post it?
What are we looking to do? Are we looking for
Yeah.
comment on,
Yeah, is Board of Selectmen has the, obviously the authority. So this describes what their authority is.
okay,
So they should actually
Be the
say,
ones
yeah,
to-
we're okay. This adequately describes what we want to describe, or we want you to make these changes.
okay, so,
We won't have an ability to have a vote on this amendment prior to posting of the other amendments, will we?
We will have a bite at the apple because we have a meeting on the 4th.
Fourth.
Okay, so we'll have to include this
Right.
on the 4th to
Yeah.
vote on to add it to the public hearing. Okay,
Yep.
got it. Just want to make sure we had that
Coming
covered.
back from Attorney Cleary, if,
Right.
you know, we want to
Yeah,
act on it,
that
we'll
one.
have
Gotcha.
an opportunity.
Good.
to do that. All right, so,
In 139.1, the zoning officer. The way we have it defined, the zoning officer's only duty is to review subdivision and site plan applications to make sure the proposed use is a permitted use. We have a code enforcement officer that does all of the code enforcement. And there is no, currently at least, there's no provisions for one or the other to do the other one's duty. So the last sentence, chief of police, fire chief, code enforcement officer, building inspector, and town health officer, or respective department shall comply with reasonable requests. So, yeah, I don't think we,
Well, the definition of the zoning officer in our ordinance right now is the administrative officer charged with the duty of enforcing the provisions of this chapter by the selectmen.
Yep.
Fairly broad responsibility.
And I think to Tim's point, the way we actually, in effect, the zoning officer simply reviewing the application, make sure it's a permitted use effectively, right? Is that sort of the extent of to which that responsibility is currently being adjourned or adjudicated, however you want to say it?
so yeah, if that's our definition, then that's not, it doesn't reflect what's happening.
Now, it goes zoning officer to code officer to town manager.
Because that's how, someone's got to do that job at some point in time. So if there's no zoning officer, if there's no code enforcement officer, the chief administrative officer of the town. Otherwise, the Board of Selectmen are going to start going out and enforcing the zoning ordinance.
You are, Bill.
That's me.
Yeah.
Get a light for the
Have
top
to
of
get
my
in your
car.
town car and a light.
so if they, so Tim, to your point, you know, if that portion of the paragraph there where it talks about the chief of police, fire chief, code enforcement, if the Board of Selectmen want to expand that out or
have someone do it.
No, that only says they got to cooperate. It doesn't give them any
Yeah,
authority.
I know, but we're sending this to them, and if they want to, kind of chunk it out or add some granularity that's not here.
Correct.
Okay.
But, this first sentence in 220-139-1 is almost verbatim the description that's in the zoning officer definition of what that job is.
The job is.
That's in the ordinance now.
In our language.
Yeah. So that's,
So Tim, what was your concern?
Well, I mean, right now, Dee Voss is our zoning officer. She's the one that reviews the applications and determines whether it's a permitted use or not.
yeah, but that's only in the context of the applications that come before this board, right?
Yeah.
I mean, her responsibility is broader though, right? As the zoning officer?
No,
Well, it is under the definition. And I get maybe reality is not matching the definition, but that definition gives that position a fairly broad range of authority.
yeah.
So you're saying that the code enforcement officer is our agent, the town's agent for going out and,
Who is the code officer, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the reality of probably what happens right now,
Bill Foy, Ron Foy? Rick Foy.
Rick Foy.
Still Rick Floyd?
He's the building inspector and code enforcement officer, as far as I know.
Both.
As far as I know.
Okay.
As was
Seen
Mike
him
Dorman
lately, so,
Yes.
several iterations ago.
Like across the street, my neighbor.
Don't we have we have someone else doing some code enforcement, right?
Well, we have is it Jeff Quirk, but he's doing the site
He's the
plan.
engineer, though.
No, Jeff Quirk is doing the site plan, on-site evaluations of what our site plans.
Well, and who's signing the occupancy permits?
That should be the code officer.
That's,
That comes from Department of Building and Safety, so I assume Rick Foy does.
so
Boy,
when we
The
look,
police the fire department does it also. Co-sign.
well, there's a piece, right? So when you look at, but there is a piece on the occupancy permit for either code enforcement and actually on some of the ones for site plans, I think it has planning board. So is that Stacy Keach? Is that Mr. Keach?
I think, we see like you see on the bond application that we have later in this
But
pile.
he's there.
Well, Jeff Quirk is being referenced as, indicating that, X, Y, and Z has been done, aside, and
So
things like
Jeff
that.
works for Steve Keach.
Yes.
And so Jeff is making a recommendation that we approve the bond release.
so planning staff right now does a zoning determination as part of the application review, but not necessarily the full enforcement. So, but is that zoning officer title along with many titles also heeded by the planning staff? I don't know if we're getting too deep into the weeds on this.
I'm gonna say out loud that I think there is, there's a disconnect with respect to code enforcement and things like that.
Right.
Okay, I mean, if there's something that's happening on site or what, or something's not being implemented or what. I mean, we have, our engineer who has staff that's reviewing implementation of a site plan. But in terms of like, if something, he doesn't have enforcement powers. I mean, somebody on our side,
Code
code
enforcement
enforcement
officer.
has to go.
Well, and
do
again,
that.
this is why it's in front of Bill, because it's their call.
So who actually has the official title of zoning officer? Mr. Foy?
No,
Zoning officer is DeVos.
Steve Voss.
D-Boss.
Code enforcement is Rick Foy.
So we have, it almost doesn't jive with our ordinance, the way it's written, because we have, the responsibilities aren't as clear cut. Like I said, I think in the capacity of town admin, or planning admin, it's more of a zoning determination as part of the application process. After that, it really kind of falls under code enforcement. Whereas the way we have it written really doesn't distinctly separate that.
Well, first of all, in our zoning ordinance, there is no definition of a code enforcement officer. It doesn't exist. The only person in there is the zoning officer. And this comports with that definition as what the words mean. We did define in the definitions, we did add a definition of code enforcement officer and building inspector. Those are part of the things,
Right.
Attorney Cleary's taking a look at. But on this issue here, we could talk like in 2 meetings on this. I think it's at the right spot. Let's see what the selectmen come back with.
Should we have a section talking about zoning determination officer and then another section consider zoning code enforcement officer?
I think that's a valid,
Yeah.
that's a valid point.
On sort of a hypothetical note, I mean, is it possible for the town or board of selectmen to, delegate enforcement to, let's say, code enforcement to an independent contractor or some other official other than, maybe even multiple people? You know what I
Rather
mean?
than
So if you
just
had
one.
somebody that was, let's say, our designated representative, our engineer and his staff, if that person be vested with, enforcement powers.
Yeah, and I think they've done that from time to time when there's been a vacancy or.
Okay.
Or they're not there.
Well, remember too, is in the definitions, that was one of Attorney Cleary's recommendations, is we add the language, either employee and or contracted, which we did. So it gives them the,
So in some sense, from our perspective, does it make sense to have, I mean, just to entertain, there's as an option for discussion that, in addition to having an engineer that we're reviewing stuff and an engineer's agent who's tasked with going out and reviewing, should he also be vested with some sort of enforcement capability to say that, shut it down or something along those lines?
No, I don't. I mean,
No?
typically if Steve or Jeff Quirk are on site doing some kind of inspection and they see something that's not permitted, they come back to the code enforcement officer, who then has the option of cease and desist or issuing, ultimately fines in court if it all comes to that, which it doesn't very often, but.
All right. So sending this over to the Board of Selectmen, do we need a motion to say that, or do we just say that this is going to the Board of Selectmen?
We'll be going there the first. I'll have it on the
I
agenda.
don't think so. You don't do anything.
No.
yep, still, we just haven't acted on it.
Yep.
Z2510. This was proposed by planning staff to address the language of temporary signs and eliminate the word content.
All right. Seems relatively innocuous, no?
Yep.
I'll make a motion, we post amendment Z2510 to for a public hearing.
Second it.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, 500. All right, Z25-7. This one looks
Yeah, this is the big one.
chunky.
So this allows us to take advantage of one of the provisions of the innovative land use controls, which is the conditional use permits. This was drafted in conjunction with the home occupancy, home operation, because in there, we create provisions for conditional use on home businesses and home industry. This language is borrowed from two different existing zoning ordinances. The one is the town of Bow and the other is the town of Milford. Changes are in yellow from there's a change in red there. Let's strike that. That doesn't make any sense. So I took it out.
You said there was a change in red?
Is on the first page, was there a change in red ink
No?
on the
No.
board?
No.
Maybe it
Coming
just came in
today's
black and
copies.
white. So that last, in 220-80-1, existing uses, that last paragraph gets struck.
The lawfully existing
Yeah,
uses.
yeah.
Okay,
So it's gone.
forever conditional use.
Yeah.
Yep.
The whole idea with existing use, if it already exists, you don't get to drag people back in front of the planning board for conditional use. Again, to me, this was a kind of nice tool to have in the toolbox, you know? We already use it in conjunction with prime wetlands, but it can be used beyond that. And this, in the, not to keep referring back to but the training I took at both NHMA and the BEA, both of them heavily pushed, having conditional use permits as part of the ordinance.
At current, the only other way for someone to get some type of adjustment would be to go through the variance process. Is that correct?
Yeah, or like on, again, it came to this as a result of the home operation and the home occupancy. This kind of started to tie it in, but I thought it was a good thing. Yes, so either special exception or the variance.
Does that obviate, I mean, to that point where, sort of special exception, but if you were to go, what is it taking off the table for somebody that has to go get a variance? I mean, what situation would still necessitate a variance? And
It
that this
doesn't
is-
necessarily address,
Okay.
the per se, the variance. Variance, you're asking for permission that something the ordinance doesn't otherwise permit.
Okay.
The conditional use only relates to uses that are permitted subject to conditional use. So the underlying use has to be a permitted use. And conditional use kind of processes cannot be like a shadow site plan. There are certainly elements of site plan kind of areas, traffic, noise, likewise, but you can't use it as a site plan light, I guess.
So if our zoning says selling widgets is not allowed here, we could, in essence, the only process right now is to currently go for variance.
Yeah, and that would be the same even with conditional use unless the ordinance itself permitted that use as a conditional use.
If
So
some,
for- Yeah,
if someone came in and requested a conditional use permit and we denied it, would they then also have the ability to go for variance after denial of conditional use permit?
I mean, they technically could because they're two different things, I think, I will tell you, conditional use permits, the only appeal is to Superior Court. If we denied it, if the planning board denied a conditional use period, there's no appeal to the zoning board. It goes right to the
Right to the court.
right to Superior Court. So
Like for instance, in the C1 district.
let me just give you an example, if it's probably worth the better. Is so, let's take, and it's on point with, I think, a memo that Dee had sent. So family daycare and family daycare group homes. In the recent legislation, they made those now, those have to be allowed in any residential district, but they can be allowed subject to conditional use. So in Article 5 and 6, which council is looking at, essentially I put them in there, as a home business, and made them subject to conditional use. So given that you're talking about noise, you're talking about traffic, traditional planning board kind of things. So otherwise, they could be, and we may decide, hey, we don't want these to be conditioned. We just want to allow them by right, But right now, they're not allowed in the RCs, but by law now they are. So the idea was, okay, we can make them subject. The statute allows us to we can make them subject to conditional use.
So we're taking advantage of a statutory change.
Correct. Well,
Like if we didn't have this, then they would have to have it by right.
well, they could have it by right. But yes, we would have to do something. We would have to do something like this if we wanted to make it conditional use. But just remember, conditional use, you have to put that use into the use tables. It has to be a permitted use. So if there's only, if there are elements, some towns use this as a way to kind of encourage development in the town centers. It's exactly what it says it is. It's an kind of innovative land use control where you can create the use, but still have some some say as to the nature, scope, and timing of it.
So if we put it in the table as an approved use in our zoning, why do they need also a conditional use permit?
As you make it subject to conditional use. In the table, it says conditional use.
So we'd add to the table of permitted
Edge of the
uses,
table.
permitted by conditional use.
Yep.
And then use ABC would fall under that, just like we have permitted by special exception now. This would be adding a
Got it.
third category.
Thank you for clarifying.
So we could say yes or no to a particular scenario if it's under a conditional use table. It's there, it's conditional use, we'll grant it. As opposed to saying that it was a use and then we're saying no, and it's like, well, it's permitted and you have to do it.
And at its core, to me, this is a tool in the toolbox kind of thing. It just, it's designed, I came to it by just reading and somewhat accidentally, but once I saw it, I thought I could see the value of it as another tool in the toolbox. And I saw that we already use it in wetlands, so.
Yeah, it's in another place too, which
The aquifer, is it? Isn't it in there?
maybe wherever it is, shouldn't be there. I don't know.
Strike it.
Love it.
Okay.
Wherever it is.
Well, we have time, Tim. We can take it out.
Yep.
I'll look for it. The other, well, I don't want to drift off the topic, subject here too much, but the other thing I wanted to do was, we have definitions, as you all know, every place. So in the consolidation of the site plan subdivision, those were consolidated. Usually they were the same in both, but oftentimes they were slightly different. So I took the one I thought was the better. But we shouldn't have duplicate definitions in zoning and subdivision and site plan. So one approach would be to just put everything one place or the other, but, you know, a lot of the definitions in site plan subdivision are pretty much in the weeds. Just probably don't want those in zoning. But the ones that are duplicate, the one that's in zoning probably should be the one that prevails.
Tim, is your concern that some of the definitions are actually slightly different in different places?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that could be problematic.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think now for wetlands and wetlands district in the subdivision site plan, it says see zoning article, blah, blah, blah. So it refers back to the zoning. But anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't want to.
No, I think it's right, trust me,
Conditional
it'd
use
be
for-
nice,
Good.
it'd be nice if everything was the same, or, you
Right.
know.
Exactly. Okay, so what do we want to do with this one?
All right, just the last part here, you have termination and transferability. All right, so you're indicating that, you have a transferability, that goes with ownership, it stays with the site. But we're saying that if they don't exercise something within 12 months, then we're authorized to revoke it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it gives them the ability to come in and chat with us.
Right, right.
And let's face it, I mean, pretty reasonable board if someone comes in with a reasonable reason, But there should be some time limit on it. And I borrowed this from another ordinance, it was 12 months, I just stuck it at 12 months, it could be longer if you want it.
Does a CUP transfer on sale of property or business? And you address that?
It runs with the lot. Unless in the other aspects of the ordinance where we talk about the requirements for that particular thing as a conditional use, there's language that would state otherwise.
All right, well. Other questions from the board?
No, that would make sense, definitely, 12 months. Yep. I move that we accept, what is this, 228.5.3, termination and transferability, or do you want?
C-25-7, right?
25-7, yeah.
Oh, okay, yep, I'll go back to the front. C-25-7. Right, are you in favor?
I second it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Do you want me to take a stab at drafting the voter's guide? That's a yes or no, just so you know.
Now, we're not stepping on anyone's toes with respect to that, are we? So, if you want to take a stab.
I mean, just to get something.
Unless other bodies have a burning desire
And
to.
the voters' guides are going to be brief and to the point, just, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
So Ken will take a stab at the voter's guide.
And I'll make the changes we talked about.
Thank you, Dan.
Just one more. I think we had me see, what was it? They suggested one.
Yeah, from the
Oh,
one from
yeah.
D.
Yep.
It's on daycare.
All right, so,
So that is actually,
That's gotta be like what you
That-
just,
that is actually captured in
in yours,
25-6.
right.
So and 25-2, that's the 25-2, which is the definitions, defines family daycare, group home, and family daycare. And it defines it by tying it right back to the RSA. And then in Z25-6, it treats it as a permitted use, okay? In the first, in B, you see family daycare home and family daycare group home as part of the list of the permitted uses.
We don't need to double up.
Just out of curiosity, did we clarify the difference between a family, excuse me, a adult daycare home versus adult daycare versus a long-term care?
No, so right now, long-term care is not a defined term in our zoning ordinance.
/ nursing home, yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Nursing
a
home.
defined, it's in there as a permitted use, but it's not a defined term. And there are, I think in one of the early, we looked at this as the committee, there were maybe, a dozen to 18 terms that,
Yeah.
that are permitted uses that are not otherwise defined. We did not go, we picked some to fix. We did not deal with every one of them. That can be done next year. They've lasted this long, I think another
Yeah,
year is not
right.
gonna vote. So, but like long-term care was one of them.
It's pretty broad. I mean, there's all sorts of things. Some was, rehab type related, some is other.
And the state has a definition, what's long-term care, a skilled nursing facility. So, the thing is, I just put it up there.
I'll take a stab at that. If I can, comparing the zoning and subdivision
Yeah.
definitions.
is that 2025?
I'll send you everything that I got in Word,
Okay.
Okay.
So the family daycare home, family daycare group home are in the home operation, home occupancy, if you will, as a home business. And home business is a subject to conditional use.
So the argument is that this proposed zoning is contained conceptually.
We've already captured it in,
It's
Six and
already
two.
done,
All right,
but we captured it in the home
right.
operation. If the feeling is we need to pull this out as a separate amendment, it's already in here. And I think maybe a follow-up, just note to Attorney Cleary was to take a look at that in the context of does he feel like we captured it? I think that's
Right.
probably a wise.
Good.
I mean, do we want to forward this to Attorney Cleary?
I think
With
we did.
the language that you just said that, given these two, if there's anything
Yeah, just,
particularly.
this is already, I think this is already, we already sent this to him.
No, I mean.
No, Z25-6. You're talking about D20.
Yes.
Yeah, send that to him with the request that
Yeah. I
take a
mean,
look to see if what we've done in here captures that.
Yeah, and if he comes back with something like, that is critical, that's no overlap or it's
Yeah,
not subsumed under,
But
then, we should. All right, so,
the only reason that those family daycare home and group home definitions appear and the language appears is because of that new statute.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have never known.
So if, if the board is amenable to this, then, I suggest we send this, this proposed zoning to
Yeah.
Attorney Cleary with the idea that, is it captured within 25-6 and 2? And if there's anything that we should, that could be carved out or restated that we're missing.
Yeah, he may very well say,
Yeah, I
we
mean-
can make this clearer by X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
Or just say it's redundant and move forward with it.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
something along those lines.
So this really goes with 6. No?
All right. All right, so I think that covers the first tranche of amendments that we had sent and had reviewed and come back.
Yeah.
And like I said, there we have
The dates, right?
we have a couple more that are being reviewed right now by Attorney Cleary. And I think you'll notice in your package that we,
At the time.
no, in our package, we have an email back from health officer, Patrick Kiley. I think, what amendment is he speaking
So
to?
he's talking about the homestead food, which is in Z25-6. And I will tell you, I know that,
This one?
I looked at our health ordinance while we were drafting, this particular amendment. And it's in just two general ordinances that govern, food service in the town of Plastow. One of them contradicts itself. So one of them says that homestead's exempt from food service license. And then at the last paragraph of it says it's prohibited. So what is it? And the other ordinance says it's prohibited. So, I don't want us to get into, an argument with the town's health officer. That's not the intent here.
No.
But I'm just going to give you some context.
Yeah.
So there are 250, cities and towns in the state of New Hampshire. Only 15 of those self-regulate, of which Plastow is one of them, In those other 235 towns, they follow the state requirements, unless they've done something different. I have not gone through it, but I would say the majority of them follow the state health licensure, because the self-inspecting towns relate to licensure of food service, And in those towns, homestead food is exempt. And homestead food is selling, non-potentially hazardous food from your home. Think cookies, brownies,
Lori Merlet's home baked pies.
there you go.
What about
Yeah.
mulberry wine?
And so-
I'm famous
Mulberry
for
wine,
those.
wine.
No, you can't. Well, you can make up to a certain amount of wine.
So if you had like a mulberry wine.
Like I can, as a home brewer, I can make up to 200 gallons a year.
Just saying,
You're not-
but
you're
there's
not
certain,
supposed to
there's
sell
certain
it, though.
Facebook personalities that talk about
Personal
making
consumption.
mulberry.
Personal.
So you're saying that out of all the municipalities in New Hampshire, 15 actually have some type of specific?
Well,
Self-regulation?
they have the right to do it. I don't know if everyone,
Yeah.
I haven't gone back and looked whether everyone allowed or didn't allow. I know Plastow, again, it's somewhat confusing in the regulations. And so the idea was to make homestead food, which I personally have, as someone who spent all of his life in healthcare, the risk of getting sick from a cookie is pretty remote, And I think it goes to the nature of what the home operation was trying to do, is get people to use their homes. And I can put their names on a list. I've had 20 people come to me over the years at the farm that live right in this town, want to make their cookies or their brownies and
Right.
sell them at the farm,
Right.
you know? And I think that should be allowed.
So right now it's prohibited.
Yes,
I agree.
Are we looking to allow it
yes.
Yes.
and govern it by what the state?
Well, there's two things. One is the homestead. Yeah, so there's two categories of homestead food. One is just exempt. It's not licensed. All you have to do is follow the labeling laws in the state of New Hampshire. The other is licensed. And the only difference is you can't sell anything different, licensed versus unlicensed, if you will. You can't sell any different foods. You're still limited to non-potentially hazardous foods. And that's a defined term. So what you do though is in a exempt, if you will, or unlicensed homestead, you can only sell it out of your home or you can sell it at a farmer's market. A licensed, you can now sell it to restaurants, you can sell it online, that's the only difference.
Gotcha.
So yes, the difference is I treated this as the use of property, I treated homestead, the ability to do homestead, which I believe is under the purvey of the zoning, of the zoning ordinance, and said, okay, we should permit this.
So that's currently being, those are one preview wise.
That's the ones that are going to clearing, yeah.
All right, so it's, again, that's in your packet, and
5 and 6, we're not doing, right?
5 and 6 is being reviewed by Attorney Cleary.
Okay.
And this is
Well,
the feedback that we got from the health.
I mean, would anyone have a problem if maybe I just pick up the phone and call the health officer and see,
What, yeah.
I mean, you could, anybody can call and talk to them, right?
yeah,
So anybody can do that.
yeah,
But I know like the Board of Health is the selectman.
yeah,
And our ordinance is stricter
yes,
than what the state's is.
yeah.
When that got adopted, I don't know when it got adopted, but it was a while, but I know it's stricter and there are more
ordinances
restrictions.
are permitted to be stricter,
Yep.
they certainly are. This is something we should have, because it seems to me it's a fairly minor issue and would probably go a long way to making some people in the town, happier.
Okay, I'd
In
love to
terms
speak
of
to this.
also,
Because I looked into this. My wife she won ribbons for her bread at multiple fairs.
See, that's what I do. I
But
make
she makes bread, which actually has far less ingredients that are bad for you than in the store. But I looked into it and cannot do it. So
could not do it from the
you
perspective
cannot,
of
she
plastic.
couldn't go out front and say, fresh bread and sell it from the house because it would be against the health ordinance in town.
And if this were to go through as a zoning
Well,
amendment,
what you have
Would
is
you be able to-
No, you'd probably still have to go to the Board of Health,
You'd
Yeah.
probably still
which is
have,
a selectman would still have to
Yeah.
waive it. So that's who it would have to go to.
you'd have a conflict for sure.
well, but just in terms of discussion, and we're, when we're talking about economic development from the master plan, something like, that where we're encouraging type of, like home occupancy type
Yeah.
businesses and things like that, in the spirit of looking at it, I would say that we should, if it's something that's old and it's something that's just has sort of a force of, we don't know when it was adopted, perhaps.
Well, I don't know when it was
Yeah.
adopted, that when we, we're one of 11 or 15 towns, I don't know what it is, whatever that number is.
Right.
So I don't know when that was adopted, but I do know it would have to go before the selectmen.
Yeah.
For that to be changed. There'd have to probably be public hearings,
Yeah.
Obviously I'd want to talk to the health officer before I did anything.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, if we're talking about economic development, we're serious about it and, things are, a little different post-COVID and stuff like that, in terms of like no brick and mortar and stuff like that, then,
Well,
it wouldn't hurt to discuss.
I'm never opposed to a discussion.
discussion's always fine, but, I think we should remember that kind of the limited use that we've defined for home occupations The intent there was not to stifle economic opportunities for that individual, but to make sure that individuals' neighbors are not impacted by, I don't know that you want to live next to somebody that was selling pies and cakes all day. Maybe you would, I don't know. If you like pies and cakes, maybe.
Maybe if they gave you a cake occasionally.
You live next
But,
door
I
to someone
mean,
with pies and cakes, you better have a tailor there too for
You
the.
can make me happy, give me a pie a week,
Yeah, I think there was
So,
a similar
you know,
time where someone had like a hot dog cart. And,
Yeah.
It's
Additional, additional traffic.
As
FedEx
a practical
deliveries.
matter too, is, this is not a business that lends itself like to people showing up at the door, buying a cake or buying a pie, because
No, then you go to
there's
the
no
bakery.
scale, you'd never make any
bakery,
money
yeah.
at that. What you're doing is you're putting it in your car and you're driving to the farmer's market, or you're driving to, someplace.
It's almost like a North End type thing.
Yeah,
where,
it-
you know,
it
you got
is,
the
yeah, you
restaurant, the
wouldn't-
food's
yeah,
not
you-
necessarily coming
Well,
out from the
and
restaurant.
you're limited to what you can do, because you can't, under the statute, you can't like have a commercial kitchen in there, You can't even have a commercial mixer, if you look at the guidelines for this, the state's pretty clear, we want this to be a low impact homestead kind of business, so.
I mean, technically under this, you couldn't sell eggs out front. I know that's already kind of happening anyways in town, but that's the way I would look at it. You could sell your fresh eggs or whatever,
Right.
because they wouldn't.
There's some exemptions for poultry producers in the question of whether that's eggs or not. I would say it is, but
came first, the
those
chicken
are
or the egg?
exempt. Yeah, those are exempt, so.
Right, the ordinance came first.
Honey, eggs.
All right, so I guess that's a preview, right? So we'll wait until Attorney Cleary has to say, and then go from there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see whatever the business we have here.
Before we leave zoning, we should set a date for the public hearing, probably.
Yeah, they had the dates on this calendar.
Yeah, because the big thing is, the calendar really isn't our friend the way the holidays fall this year.
Yeah,
All right.
Because you're gonna lose that first one in January, because the first is on a Wednesday.
yeah, so your
That's
first
always-
meeting's not till the 8th.
Right.
That's always been the case.
Yeah, but just want to make sure everyone remembers.
All right, I got it with the calendar here.
And these are date ranges, so.
So when we were, in our last meeting, we talked about shooting for the 18th of December for the
18th.
first public hearing.
Okay, 18.
Yeah,
I think you think you have to, right? Because just look at the way the date, because the next two Wednesdays are the holiday.
yeah, and if, something happens, we need to get something in, at least we have the time to do it.
Mhm.
I think if we push it into January, we got no room to wiggle.
No.
Right. Agreed.
Okay, so December 18th is the first thing we got to do.
So that notice would have to go out, I think, no later than the 6th.
Yeah, well, tomorrow, we'll send out an email saying that if we're going to shoot for the 18th, then, we'll have all these scheduled for the first viable date that we can do a hearing that also comports with the 5 days' notice to the Eagle Tribune and, et cetera. So,
And the notice is 10 days, right? Not to the Tribune, but to 10 days, right?
Yeah, but you.
You don't include
I think
the,
what Richard was saying, you got to send the notice to the Tribune 5 days ahead of the
Right.
10-day
Yeah.
notice.
Right.
So-
right,
yeah, so basically tomorrow, we should say everything that we've passed or voted on should be then, communicated that let's set things in motion in terms of noticing and, and everything that entails for the 18th of December.
what do we need for the public hearing? Is it just notice, or do we need to actually have the copies of the amendments?
You got to have copies of the amendments.
available? Okay,
So does that mean just the Word documents and it's in warrant article form?
yeah,
All right. And then-
they'd be
yeah.
PDFs, but
We
yeah.
help with
Yeah.
that.
We read them fully twice.
No, you just need to do it once.
You do it
Just the
once.
public hearing.
And then the second one, you don't have to reread it. It's, you open up for the second and
Right.
if they're here, they're here. If they're not, they're not.
Just having some PTSD, couldn't remember what.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
And is the
So-
requirement to
Yeah, we're gonna
read,
make you read them
is the
all.
Yeah,
requirement
we're
to
gonna
read
make
the
you do it
entire,
twice.
okay, one at a
You're good
time.
at it.
One at a time.
or just what, because in the warrant article, we could use topical descriptions of some of these, right?
Anything that's being changed, right?
You have to read them full?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just.
You have to read it all.
Okay, Tom, you're just
Yeah.
being abusive because you had to read
Now,
ridiculous.
Well, there was one year we handed it off between each other.
yeah.
You probably
So
just do it
what,
with
what
AI.
you can do on the ballot itself, on the warrant, it goes on the ballot. You can, if it's a very long article, you can have available at the voting.
Right.
A paper copy of that long description.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
on the ballot language, just makes reference to that. Because, you don't want to have
No.
20 ballots printed up for,
No.
these long articles. So you can do that.
Yeah, no, which I think on some of these we might want
To
to
do that.
take advantage of.
Yeah, we have in the past.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not
All right,
unusual.
so just two things. One, we communicate that we're shooting for the 18th. Whatever's required to be pushed to D, we can get that to D.
Mhm.
All right. And then the voter's guide is, we don't have to obviously do it concurrently. We just need to we'll just be working on it, so. All right. Anything else on that subject? Anything I'm missing, Tim?
I don't think so.
Right.
I mean, we have some more work to do. But there's no reason. So if we get these, what we talked about, posted 8 of them tonight for the public hearing.
Yes.
So by the time we meet again, and it's probably, it might be too late to post those for the 16th, or was it, what, December 16th, was that the?
18th, I think.
18th.
18th, yep.
But it's not to say we can't have subsequent public hearing for posting those.
You might have to.
We might have to.
So let me just.
And you're talking about 5 and 6, the one that are in flight.
2, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
Yep.
2, 5, and 6, and 3 of them.
So the notice to the Tribune that has to go out, like, say, December 1st,
Yeah,
okay? That's just,
That's just our preferred method of noticing.
okay, that's right. But then, so within 10 days of the 18th, right? Not including the 18th and not including the day,
Right.
we have to have all of the amendments available.
yes.
So by December 6th, let's just say,
Right.
all of that has to, whatever's going to be on that public hearing has to be in public hearing form.
And we
Right, so-
meet again on the 4th, so the
Yeah.
other
see.
3 amendments, do we still
Could
have
be
the
done.
ability to look at the other 3 amendments on the 4th? And then vote to post those on public hearing?
I'll tell you what.
Also hear them on the
Then we
18th?
could put
Be
them all together.
prepared, no one might back me up on this. The 4th could be a long night.
Yeah,
Would you agree?
yeah, yeah,
Well,
Oh, yeah,
the
that's
4th
prime
is,
West.
yeah.
That could be a
Prime
long one.
That's
We
probably,
always did that.
But I mean, if we're prepared for it, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll stay to get it done.
well, let's just talk about that naturally, the segue.
Well, if Nolan and his gang doesn't show up for the meeting, we should be okay.
No, let's just be clear, because I think, it's important to sort of convey what it is that's happening on the 4th,
Yes.
right? For instance, people, there were people that came in, abutters and some other applications that were before us, and there were, it's under the apprehension that they were talking about something that we weren't talking about. So, the way we handled that was to say that what we're talking about here is, we're dealing with a site plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if the question that is animating people is being held on this day by another board. So I guess what, I'd want to convey up front on the 4th, what it is that we're doing, so that, people can come up and vent all they want. And my intent is to give anyone that wants to say something, full hearing, say what they want, not limit them to 2 minutes, but not also a repetitive screed. All right. So if someone wants to say something, they want to clarify something, please feel free to do that. Be respectful. If they're not respectful, then, it just be made clear that, we're not going to tolerate that,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera.
If I could
So-
make a recommendation for that night, those three that we want to go over again.
Yeah.
Do that first.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Do that first. And I don't know if anyone can do it. Do you want to start the meeting earlier?
Let's,
your call.
Yeah, but what, do you want to do it a half hour early, 6 o'clock? I mean, that's not.
I'm just saying, because I know we've done it before. There's a.
Well, I know, but
selectmen
just, is there a consensus or an appetite for that? An earlier meeting, schedule the other warrant article discussion before, with the idea that, we'll know if we get the information back from Attorney Cleary, we'll have D circulated to everyone. All right, so if it's a giant mock-up that it's like, this is going to take forever, or if this is just sort of, then maybe we do dispatch it just by coming in a little earlier.
Yeah, I mean, and this was going to say, do we have any, the only reason why we're holding those off is because we're waiting for some comments as well as the one that requires Board of Selectmen discussion.
Right.
Correct.
Do we anticipate any long discussions? Can we plan to kind of just shoot through them and say, hey, post and do the official vote to post them to the public hearing and really get that done in 5 minutes? Or does it
Well,
need
we could,
discussion?
if the comments come back, like not at,
I-
4 o'clock that day of the
That's
meeting,
going to make a
then
difference.
we could push it out email wise. And,
Yeah.
and then it should just be a matter of like,
I
you've read
still
it.
think the home business, home operate, that's got some heft to it,
Right.
It drastically
Right.
changes kind of what we're looking
Yeah.
at. I think that's going to require, the definitions are the definitions. Those can be cleaned up. And we use the definitions in 25.6, in
Oh,
25.6, so it didn't contaminate. So you don't have to cull things out. They're all sitting there. Either that thing gets approved or it doesn't. And the language on that ties to 25.5, which is just amending the tables to reflect what's in 6. Is those things are
Right.
tied. If one doesn't pass, the other one doesn't pass.
Yeah, so,
you know?
so I guess what we're saying is that
Just some
when
time.
we get things back, if it's like a horrible, like, there's a ton of stuff, then you'll know, because we'll push it out early, to everyone when we get it. But my other concern is that, is it going to cause heartache from a noticing point of view if we say we're coming in a half hour early?
No, you just, when you post a meeting, you just post
Right.
it, that it's going to start at
So
6.
are we okay with coming in a half hour early?
Yeah.
All right, and when we'll commit that if we get Attorney Cleary's stuff back, it's going to be coming over the email. People are going to look at it, so it shouldn't be the first time you look at it. So,
Yeah, and also if some of the changes are communicated out, we can't, just a kind of reminder, we can't have
no,
open dialogue. It constitutes a meeting or whatever, right?
no, but
So-
I'm just saying that it's
So we
going to be
can
pushed.
individually respond and
Yes.
we can't just all start talking to each other on the
No.
same email.
And that just, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that
No,
we have,
I'm saying it for clarification,
right, yeah.
just so we don't mess that up. Because I did that early in my term. I sent an email out to everyone and
You
Dee
had
was
a
like,
blog
You
and
can't
you
do
were
that.
like, hey, guys.
Oh, yeah, forgot.
Yeah, no, the intent is that if we get it, Dee should push it to everyone so you can see it, have eyes on it, so that
No. you
we
said-
have the half hour early. It's productive as opposed to first time opening it up.
I don't have to go through that.
So, yeah, so I think next meeting should be a half hour early.
Long meeting.
We do those warrants first, and then we open it up for the, prime wetlands.
Is there going to be a
I mean,
presentation?
we've already advertised the prime wetlands public hearing starting at 6:30.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you can't start before. If we have a discussion of warrant articles and blah, blah,
it's
blah.
going to be from 6
It goes
o'clock.
to 6:40, then, that's fine. That's after the 6:30.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not recommending that we
No,
do that because
We'll
we
do-
know
we'll do
we're
it
going to have
in 20
a room
minutes.
full of.
We can't start a meeting a public hearing earlier with the idea that wetlands, public meeting has been advertised at 6:30. Certainly have no discussion and then say, now we're going to open the public hearing on wetlands when 6:30 hits.
At 6, yeah.
Or if we're just about done and it doesn't start till, say, 6:40, that's
Gotcha.
fine too.
Gotcha.
It just can't be before 6:30.
Right.
Yeah, same, I mean,
that's
same, we advertise all
Yes.
our public hearings starting at 6:30.
Okay.
None of them really start at 6:30 because we do, 2 minutes for minutes
Yeah.
and then, if it's all, depends
But are
on
you
how
saying
long.
we cannot come in early to discuss other business?
We can.
No, we can't.
We can.
Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
no, if we finished up, and there was a 15-minute gap, we couldn't start the
All right.
wetlands hearing
Yes.
earlier.
Yeah,
So
then you
we
just
need to-
say we're taking a 15-minute break or whatever, and then come
We're
back at
still going to be
6:30.
here at 6, though.
Yes. All right, so 6 o'clock, the next meeting, please review whatever comes over the emails. And I think, I guess, that, just, we got distracted a little bit. What is it that, just for the, saying it out loud, what is it that we're holding a public hearing on with respect to the wetland, prime wetlands? What is it that we're doing so that we can communicate that to people coming in and want to say whatever they're saying?
Yep, it
Could
is.
you guys
Just
decide conversation, please?
So
Yeah.
we're reviewing prime wetlands regulations and the changes we're proposing for prime wetlands.
Will there be the consultant? Will he be here?
I think so. I haven't heard positively from him yet,
All right.
but he did ask what the proposed zoning changes we were making. So if he could not be here, I'm sure he would have responded
Okay,
right away. I can't
all right.
be here.
Yeah, so I think we're good. I think the last bit of business is that we have a
Release?
bond decrease, and I'm going to recuse myself from this particular subject. The vice chair, Karen Robinson, will officiate.
Okay?
Would you want to set somebody else up in his place?
What's that?
Want to set Tom up in Richard's place?
They should. Okay, all right. So, yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do too, is I'm going to ask Tom.
Do we need to appoint a,
Yeah, he's recusing himself. We have to
Right.
take a vote.
Can I ask a question on this one?
Yep.
So tell me the process, and I'm not going to make you go through all the i's and t's, but we have a consultant or the code enforcement officer. One of those two people is signing off on the certificate of occupancy, right?
It
And-
says it's been issued.
It's been issued already.
So does it often get issued when everything's not done? I mean, I just saw this the other day, so
Yeah, I
I
just
don't,
looked
and
at
I
it.
wasn't here, I wasn't on the board when
Yeah.
this was approved, but,
Right.
the one thing that I looked at, briefly was just the landscaping plan. And that seems to be
It's not done.
fairly deficient.
Well, I'm a little disappointed at the trees along the Main Street.
Yep.
I mean, are they even still alive?
Well, the challenge is when you're using all deciduous trees, it just, you get whatever buffer, whatever blocking you're intending to get, you ain't gonna get them with those.
No.
Oh,
So.
we told them that.
But that's the only, and it was more of a conceptual question, what is done or what is almost done,
you're talking
And
about
wasn't there wasn't there a required signage too?
Yeah,
Yes.
there's supposed to be a sign when you exit Main Street, no left turn.
Yep.
And I only see one sign there, and I think it's a stop sign, but I don't know that because I haven't been on their property.
Yeah.
So I don't know that. But there
I
is,
just want to make
there
sure
is
there
supposed
is
to
a
be a
sign.
no left
No
turn.
left turn.
So I don't know if it's there or not.
That
So
one
with
too.
regard to the trees, are you referring to ones along
Main
near the
Street.
intersection or behind the residences?
No,
Those
just the
residents along
buffer
Main Street.
along the intersection. So along Main Street and then 125.
Yep. Go
Again,
straight out.
I gave this all of like 10 minutes just flipping through it, and I didn't
No,
see it.
I just don't think it's all been.
But they're talking, the bond's 190,000, isn't it, or 90,000?
199.
199.
So,
That was the initial bond.
yeah.
Yep.
Have we released pieces of that between then and now?
It looks like the only thing we're looking at here is 7,500.
Yes. Yeah, 7,500.
It's a
So that's all we're
7,500.
holding now is 7,500
That's
bucks?
all, that's all
That's
that
all
will
we
be
would
held
be.
after, as long as the bond release occurs, to ensure that
Landscaping survives.
landscaping survives, and if need be,
But landscaping surviving can be tough, right? It could die another year from now. So how long are you gonna hold it? And usually that stuff has like a year or two warranty on it.
You know, the example I like to use is that, remember the trouble we had with the storage? They had planted these things, it didn't survive, and they were very small. It was not doing the landscaping that they, we had talked about. Then they had to come back and they did it over. And, but they were expected to do that and they said they would do it.
And they did.
And they did. So I don't know why the same thing doesn't apply to these guys.
well, wouldn't that be an indication of the 7,500 that's being kept in case that occurs?
That seems like a low number.
Yeah,
I
that's,
don't know what we did with the others. I don't know what we did with it.
Can we vote on the bond amount?
I don't know.
well, they're looking to get $191,000 and some
I'm
change
sorry,
back. That's what this is to
No, they're
release.
looking for 7,500, aren't they?
No, 7,500 is just what you keep. The total,
For retained, just 7,500, right?
right, and
it's
then the
So-
being held
release,
for a full calendar year.
the
We have-
release in
And
the
if you're only
next.
talking a couple arborvitae's, right? Is that what they're talking
Oh,
about?
they're talking a lot of
Was
trees.
there a fence put up behind the residences?
Yes, there was.
Yeah, the fence is there.
The trees were taken down, shouldn't have been. They put up a fence and they said they would still put up the trees.
Because what I'm looking at is the final inspection, which is the last page.
Yep.
And in that, the note he has is during the inspection, he noted a few of the arborvitae planted in the buffer didn't appear to be too healthy. So he says a few.
Just a few, there's nothing there.
And still a little lumen seed, which obviously you're not gonna lumen seed this time of the year.
You're not even gonna plant trees this time.
No.
Right.
no,
Wasn't there a
this is not the
requirement to
right year
plant
to do
trees?
it.
Yeah, from what I could, again, a brief.
Behind some of the homes, there was some tree plantings, right?
Arborvitae.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do we have the jurisdiction to do anything about the amount of bond withheld, Tim?
I don't know. I don't know if we do or not.
What are your thoughts, Tim?
Well, I mean, yeah, we do have that authority.
okay.
But, I mean, we can't just be arbitrary. I mean, if we think there's, and can have some basis, we can say, we want to hold $10,000 back for landscape, but you just can't say that. You got to say, well, 5 trees have died and they cost, $2,000 a piece. So that's 10,000, that's 7,500. Some of the trees, I mean, the leaves fell off, so
Right.
they were all as far as I remember, they were all healthy before the leaves fell off.
Well,
So, over the next year, probably, a couple will die. But I don't know that I have enough information to say $7,500 isn't sufficient.
Yeah, 'cause I'm just trying to go through through the final inspection. Let's see, so there's a report from 9/6/2024. During that inspection, I noted a few minor items had not yet been completed. One, adding lumen seed to the area around the infiltration basin, and two, removing the old survey flags and erosion controls from behind the fence. Today, I can see that those remaining items have been completed. So those two, the 1 and 2, look like those were completed. And then the crew did leave a row of erosion control in place, and it was agreed to leave the silt socks in place because the area is closer to the wetland which borders the southwesterly perimeter of the site. So at this time, I can confirm all outstanding items have been completed. And then his note is during his inspection, a few of the arborvitae planted in the buffer didn't appear to be too healthy.
I just don't see it, it's not there.
And how do we find out about the sign?
Yep,
No left turn?
that has to be there.
Can we continue this till the next meeting
Yeah,
to get more information?
yeah, sure.
No, I mean, I don't, we just need to report to them that they need a no left turn sign. And we would,
Well, if we want to change the amount, then we could research about trees or take a look at the landscape plan.
That's what I want to revisit.
Stan, do you know?
I want to revisit that.
I don't know. I mean, that's what Keach has done, so.
That's like a
This place, size of the tree. Yeah.
I guess it's the amount to be withheld. The year.
Well, usually if plantings die within a year, they're covered under a warranty of some sort.
Well, the amount of 7,500 did come from K&A.
And it says we also recommend withholding the amount. They're asking us to do that,
Yeah, right.
be held for the calendar year. To ensure vigorous growth of the landscaping. I don't see signs of it being done, at all. Any of those trees replaced that survived. I haven't been right up close to it because I can't, but
I think to Tim's point, none of us is really an authority on what it costs, but, we probably on a personal level, we've probably grabbed arborvitaes or other trees, $300 to $500 a piece. I don't know. It just depends what you get, but
Yeah, arborvitae's where you can usually get like 3 for $100 or something like that.
those.
oh, those
Oh,
are
the little
small.
guys?
It's all the size, it's
Size,
like
right.
a good, healthy
Okay.
6 to 7 foot arborvitae,
Yeah, but
3 to 400.
I would think all those plantings are under warranty right now. They're not even a year old.
Warranties aren't as long as they used to.
Yeah,
But a lot of them,
Well, and this is, the reality of this is really a release of the bond,
yeah, it
It's
is.
It's 7,500, whether it's 7,500 or 8,500, it's somewhat, this
Yeah.
is really a full release of the bond.
It is, absolutely.
And, to me, again, I don't know what the rule is if someone comes in and asks for $191,000, is it yes or no? Or is it, how about 150? I'm just making it up.
Do you know where they come up with the number, or is it Keach comes up with that number? Tim, do you know?
Yeah, I don't know. Normally, there's a worksheet that shows, what,
Okay, I'm going to tell you, we can vouch for what the price is. We had some trees that were all cut down. They were all on that property's, on their property. We had nothing, so it opened it right up. So we put up an 8-foot fence, which cost quite a bit. And then we still needed the trees. So we got arborvitae's, if you ever watch, I've got pictures of it. The big, huge root balls coming in, and we tried to get a deal as best we could. And these are trees that definitely were, I can't give you really a height on them, but they were all, put right along the fence. So we have the fence and you have the height. That's what you needed, was the height. And it survived, but it was expensive.
How tall are the ones that they put in? How tall are the ones that they put in there?
See, that's
Do we
what I'm
know?
trying to figure out.
I wasn't part of it then, so I don't
Yeah,
know what
it's
any.
above
thing
the
was.
8-foot fence.
Oh, you
that we
mean
put
back when this
Oh.
was done?
Yeah, right.
I
Okay.
don't,
I don't know what was agreed to, how tall they were supposed to be that were put in.
well,
We had to replace the trees they took down.
I feel like what we agreed upon, we worked on this for a long time, is not
Right.
what's out there.
Right.
The ones that look out there look like they just bought them at Home Depot or something, and now they're like dying, and there's not many of them. I don't know, it doesn't, I'm gonna be abstaining from this anyways, because I voted no on this project. So I'm gonna be abstaining tonight on this anyways, but I just wanted to voice my opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to get stuck in the weeds and go back to the start, but so specific to this one task, would it be helpful to ask K&A for evaluation on how they came to 7,500?
Right. I
it's
would
like the
to know how they
worksheet,
came
Tim,
to
right,
that.
is what we usually get?
yep, we can ask for that.
I would say that's probably the reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
All right, so I make a motion to continue the request for bond release contingent upon receipt of a worksheet evaluating potential landscaping upgrades or resolution.
Do you want to add the left turn sign too, while we're at it, or not?
We don't even, the sign might even be there. Do we
Yeah.
know if it is or it isn't?
All right. No, well, I just thought we'd check on it.
Well, you could ask. There's nothing wrong with asking, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to,
Okay. All right. Yep.
So is that sufficient for a motion to continue the,
I don't think we need
Nope.
just consensus that we want to do that is all we need,
okay,
since we're not making any decisions, just a
Okay.
request for more information.
all right,
Okay.
we good?
Thank you.
Go on down.
Me in charge.
On the spot. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, just keep me honest here, but I think that concludes
Meeting.
everything that we had. Anyone has any old business or anything that they want to discuss? Any new business? I think, Tim, the site plan
Yep.
regulation, I mean, hasn't been reviewed, or we haven't got comments back from Steve Keach. So,
It's, the last I talked to Dee, we had not got them back from Keith.
okay. And, but that's, we don't have to deal with that. We can deal with that in a meeting, in terms
So
of,
it just requires a public hearing.
Yeah.
So there's no date deadlines that
Okay.
we need to be concerned
all
about.
right, so fair enough. And I think, Dan, was there anything that you felt that could be included in anything that was a site plan review, if you wanted to piggyback on that?
I think they're already there. It's just the comments, we had made earlier in the year that Attorney Reddington had commented on, but those are sitting in the packet.
Okay. All right, so,
It made no sense to try to talk about amending those until we saw what the combination of the subdivision and site plan was going to be. They related to they related to applications,
okay, so,
if I'm stating that right, but I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right, so fair enough. So whenever that gets back. Any last thoughts? Legislative updates? Any committee reports? I think we have minutes from the subcommittee for the economic development. So those will be, hopefully posted up online. If you notice, we have if you go on the planning board, there is a place for the various subcommittees and stuff like that. So, all right. So if there's nothing new, then I'll close this meeting at 8:47. Thank you.